9.1.5 is almost here, so let's talk Feral Druid Mythic Plus and why we are struggling so hard right now. So to make sense of what's going on with Feral Druid, let's talk about what our limitations are right now in Mythic. When it comes to keys, right now we are struggling with the fact that we have a long cooldown of Berserk at 3 minutes. We don't have any burst AoE, right? Convoke does more damage on a single target than it will do on 10 targets. The reason being, on a single target, it will favor things that increase your damage like Shred and Bites and, Feral Frenzies, whereas on AoE, it will do things like Wrath and Rake Spreading and Thrashing and things that aren't as high damage and high profile as being able to get more Shreds and more Bites. However, even in AoE, Shreds and Bites aren't particularly good because they're not AoE. Right? So there's not really anything within Convoke that's helping our AoE. However, we do get more burst damage in general because we have 1 minute Convoke now with Celestial Spirits, which has helped us. It has helped us compared to, 2 minute Convoke previously and playing with Circle of Life and Death, which is still a pretty good legendary option if you did want to play that. But 1 minute Convoke has been helpful because we've just been able to at least do something more often. But you can see on the damage meter here, like Feral does not burst up high. It does not do fantastically well in AoE, especially compared to the other specs in the game. And I would go as far as to say that Feral Druid is probably one of, if not actually just the worst Mythic Plus overall damage spec in the game. I don't know what is actually worse damage-wise. Like, Feral doesn't even win on single target in Mythic Plus sometimes. There are still some specs in some weeks where other classes beat Feral Druid on single target and AoE, even though you're spec'd for single target on Feral and all of your damage is coming from your single target, right? There are still some specs capable of doing both like that. And things like Windwalker and, just Windwalker, dude, it's not even that far behind on single target, right? And Hunter, for example, not even that far behind Feral Druid on single target. So you definitely don't make up for the fact that your AoE on Feral is bad as well, right? So those are the issues with Feral Druid, is that we don't really have any good AoE cooldowns, and none of our AoE buttons really do a whole lot. Swipe is capped at 5 targets. Thrash, I looked at a dungeon the other day. I did 81 thrashes in a dungeon, and it did 2% of my overall damage. Imagine what other abilities I could be pressing to gain more damage, Like, imagine if I didn't need to be pressing Thrash that much, or if it actually just had a buff and Thrash actually just did something in AoE. But Thrash is kind of a facilitator of your other buttons so that you can get your Blood Talons. That's fine. But when we're looking at it then, what are the real issues with Feral? Those are the problems, right? So then what are the solutions? What are quick fire solutions that Blizzard can implement before 9.1.5 launches in a couple of days, right? In under 2 weeks now. November 2nd is when that's going to be releasing. I've got a couple of ideas on how to fix Feral Druid very, very quickly. Things that aren't going to be, messing with the talents, messing with how spells actually work, messing with changing cooldowns. We saw Berserk get changed like 5 times during beta, right? Blood Talons got changed a few times, right? Things that don't involve a whole lot of development time and can instead just be made like that. Those are things that we want to implement. Is this a long-term fix for Feral? No, that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is for Feral to actually be playable in 9.1.5 and not be a complete liability to your team, right? I'm tired of friends of mine not wanting to play with me because I'm playing Feral Druid, and I think that Blizzard needs to step in, right? So I made a little list of some things, right? This was the main point that I wanted to focus on, but then I do have some additional comments as well. So some things that I think could just be instantaneously implemented and would not affect other areas of the game, right? We don't want a balancing nightmare. We don't want Feral Druid to have to they have to go and rebalance Feral for raid and PvP and have things that are going to affect those systems. So what would we do? First one, you can buff Thrash. Nice and simple. Doesn't really cause massive amounts of damage increase on single target or, in PvP, potentially on 2 targets or 3 targets, right? But it will have a big impact when you're fighting 10 to 20 mobs. It will be quite a significant increase in damage if they buff Thrash. by an amount, whatever they work on, right? Whatever they find is reasonable. As well as that, they could buff swipe damage. This is the main one, right? Buffing swipe damage, yes, it's going to be uncapped, but it's going to be soft uncapped. It's not going to be that incredible, and swipe doesn't really interact with our toolkit very well. It doesn't do anything really. It doesn't increase anything. It doesn't inflate anything. It literally is just going to give us a couple combo points, and it's going to do an amount of damage. That's it. There's no like, it's not like survival where, oh, well, if we get uncapped carve, then we have this Bloodseeker talent and we're going to get this attack speed and that's going to affect our trinkets. It doesn't do any of that. It just, you do swipe and it does damage. So buff swipe would be huge. Even though it's going to be uncapped, everyone else is going to be uncapped as well. So we still need something additional, right, to be able to outscale that. So I would just say buff swipe. Simple as that. If you removed everything else from this list and you literally just did that, I'd be cool with that. Or buffing the initial hit damage of Primal Wrath. These are my two main priorities here. Primal Wrath initial damage would again not affect raid because we're not taking Primal Wrath in raid like 95% of the time in raids. Yes, you get a fight like Hive Mind where you might take Primal Wrath, but in general, you're not taking Primal Wrath, so it wouldn't affect raid, wouldn't affect PvP, but it would affect Mythic Plus. So buff the initial hit damage. Now, if they could tune it so that they could affect the Primal Wrath rip damage and not have that impact single target rip damage that would impact PvP and raid, then fantastic. Buff the bleed damage of Primal Wrath. I'm cool with that too. But this will give us really big instantaneous damage and buff our damage in large AoE without affecting our single target in keys and stuff as well, which would be fantastic. Beyond that, they could make Berserk, increase damage of swipe, not just rake and shred. But again, then we're tied to this 3-minute cooldown that's increasing on damage. And 3 minutes is way too long of a cooldown for what Berserk really does in Mythic Plus. It wouldn't be effective enough when you're comparing that to 40-second cooldown Hunters or like 1 minute cooldown Monks, which are insane right now. Or they could buff rake damage when applied to multiple targets. Again, though, that messes with the coding of the spell, and I don't know how easy that would be to. So all in all, if they could just do these two things, I would be very, very happy if Blizzard could do that. Again, this isn't a long-term fix for Feral. This is a quick, short, we've got a couple days before this 9.1.5 patch comes in. Let's make it so that Feral Druids aren't a liability in keys and we can actually get some. Now, yes, I could add on, it would be cool to get some utility stuff, even us out. Let us cast Resurrection or Battle Res from Cat form. That would be really cool. Let us have trees. Let us have Innovate. Sure, like cool, whatever. That's fantastic. But that's longer term stuff. Those are longer term battles that we're trying to win. This is very, very quick, Blizzard. This is very easy. You can do it like that, and we know you can. So please help Feral. Give us a look. Apart from that, chat, make sure you check me out on twitch.tv/cyberslat. I'm always streaming Monday to Friday from like 2 p.m. CEST until 6 or 7 or whatever in the evening, every single Monday to Friday. So come check me out, come hang out, have some great discussions, watch some Feral Druid, watch some Survival Hunter, and have a good time. Thank you very much for watching. Take it easy.